Everyone, I'm going to call the regular council public hearing meeting to order. And before we get into the business arising out of the public hearing, a reconvene from last week, I would just ask Councillor Martin, have you received from the city clerk the information relative to the public hearing and reviewed it?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I've reviewed all of the minutes as well as I watched the tapes from last, so
okay.
I'm up to date. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Councillor. All right, moving directly into bylaws and business arising. Number 1.
Move third on H1.
Second.
All those in favour? Opposed? And that's carried.
Move council support the issuance of DVP 7915009200 upon final adoption of the related bylaw.
Second.
All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Number 2.
Third on 2.
Second.
All those in favour? Opposed? And Councillor Gill.
Madam Mayor, as the majority in council, I am also supporting this particular application, but particularly I really wanted just to give some context. This particular application is within the South Westminster Heights infill area plan, and I do recognize that the developer did a significant effort in terms of tree retention, given the policy that we have, and it does comply with the low density policy and then the tree protection designation in a particular plan. So just really wanted to recognize both the plan that we have in South Westminster and also the efforts that were put forth by the developer.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to ask for those that are opposed to this motion, and that's carried. Number 3.
Move third as amended on the OCP.
Second.
I wonder if I could, on this particular one, ask the planner if they could put, I know on table we have the outline for what is expected, but I wonder if you could put, because we heard a lot at the public hearing last week around the historical uses of this and that it was impacting some of the uses around there, the original forest, and I just would like to see that. I think we've all seen a copy of this map. Not that one. The 1984, I think it was. Okay, so we're looking at, if you could just orient me, but I think that original piece, that E division, did not impact the forest. It was actually these greenhouse areas. Just run me through this a little bit.
So, Madam Mayor and Council, where the pen is describing, this was nursery site, and E division was tucked into that previously logged and managed area.
And what is that now?
That is now E division. The buildings and the parking lots cover almost all of that. So over here we have block H, and there we have block I. Now you can see where my pen is pointing that this in 1984 had been cleared and was being grown. They grew nursery stock in this area. And so those are not heritage trees per se. It's regrowth of cottonwood and alder in this area. This corner site was some of the original plantings, and they continue to grow. This area here was planted in the late 1950s or early 1960s with deciduous interesting trees such as elm and beech. This area was planted with exotic pines in the late 1950s or the early 1960s. And then landscaping was planted around this area through the late 50s and the 1960s. And some of those trees have grown to considerable size. This essentially is just regrown forest, and this area is regrown forest. In 1966, you can see that, well, in 1954, this was the original planting along with the rest of green timbers, but it was logged prior to 1966 and it had regrown. You can see the new pine planting here. It was planted here. You can see it here now. And you can see that area that was soon to be planted with deciduous trees. And there's hardly any trees shown in the landscaping around the buildings. So, Madam Mayor?
And could you just point out for me again where the hospital site is?
This is the hospital site here.
So it was not forested land by the look of that.
It was in the 1930s, but it was cleared and planted out both with greenhouses and with rows of trees, young nursery stock.
Okay, now if you would indulge us, would you put on the current land map for, okay.
So, Madam Mayor, this area up top was left to grow in naturally after 1966 sometime. They abandoned it as an area for growing seedlings. You can see E-Division parking and the buildings here. The Jimmy Pattison Outpatient Center is here where there used to be fields for nursery production. The area of white, this is where the buildings are and where landscape tree specimens are planted that were planted over the last 40 years. This is a riparian area next to the creek, but of course in those days they didn't know better, or they built buildings and parking quite close to the creek. That area will be rehabilitated and left for riparian. This is an area of the old pines that were planted sometime in the late 1950s. This is the really old original forest, and this is the 1950s, 1960s planted area of deciduous trees. This is just natural regeneration in this area, and natural regeneration after nursery production in this area.
Okay, any other questions of council? So, Councillor Villeneuve.
So I really appreciate staff, because I think a lot of us were struggling on this property, and I appreciate the work that was done to bring the information forward, because I think a lot of us were doing quite a bit of research. So no part of the dedicated green timbers forest is impacted with this proposal. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor, that's correct. None of this was originally dedicated in either the 1987 or the 1996 referenda.
Okay. My second question is the riparian area, which is now not complete as a riparian area, will be restored with the creek going through it, and there will be no impact from any changes on that area once it's restored.
That's correct.
And will you be, I know that in the report it said that we'll be saving the cluster of the 91-year-old trees, but will you be, if we do redesignate it this evening and rezone it, be doing a further arborist analysis and an analysis on the wildlife corridor in there?
Through Madam Mayor, that is my understanding. A full and complete inventory of individual trees and their qualities will be included.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to reconfirm that in fact these lands were purchased from the province, correct?
It was a free Crown grant that took place about 10 years ago, a little less than 10 years ago.
And was there any other stipulations or obligations in terms of that acquisition?
I'm in error. I'm sorry. The Block H and Block I were purchased by the city recently. I'm sorry.
So we're in those acquisitions, was there any requirements in terms of any commitments that were made to the provincial government in terms of land use as it pertains to these? I'm
not the best person to answer that question. Perhaps our planner?
Madam Mayor, there were no commitments that the city is obligated to as a result of the acquisition.
And just a quick history lesson, was there any intent in terms of having these lands be assembled to increase the green timbers in any shape, way or form, just in the context of the land use from the province in terms of their acquisition or their disposal of this asset?
Block H and I, we're not on the park acquisition program, have not and are not.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify something for myself, please? The riparian area that is to be restored, did I hear you correctly that that is currently parking lot?
Madam Mayor, part of that is in parking, part of it is in driveway, and part is in lawn. part is where buildings formerly stood and have been demolished.
And that will all be restored back to creek riparian?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion on the floor relative to this?
You do.
Relative to, okay, all those in favor of third? Are there opposed? And that is carried.
Move third reading on the second OCP.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Move third on the zoning bylaw.
Second.
All those in favor? Did you want to speak to that, Councillor Villeneuve?
I do want to speak to the zoning bylaw. I'm supporting it. I supported the site that we originally required closer to the hospital as a good site for the transitional housing and new shelter. We've been trying to get the new shelter off the ground for the last 5 to 8 years, and so the reality is that the conversation has moved so that we are able to actually combine and use this land well, and BC Housing has agreed to move forward with the shelter on this site, and it also allows us an opportunity to provide some other really necessary facilities in the city, particularly for seniors and people with mental health addictions, which we would not have had the room on the other site. But I want to be really clear. Though I'm supporting this site at this time, I've been dismayed at the delay in the project going to a new site, but I want to say very clearly that I want to retain the zoning that we do have on the site that we originally proposed, the transitional housing. So we have that site as a city to provide as a partner as a city for other nonprofit organizations that are trying to provide services in the city. The city of Surrey is behind on social infrastructure, so we need the opportunity and land positioned well close to services in order to meet the needs of some of our most vulnerable citizens in this city. So that's why I'm supporting the rezoning, and with the understanding that it is not any part of the forested area, and that the arborist will do a moral thorough check so that any kind of development we do on this site is in mind of preserving every heritage tree that we can.
Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also wanted to echo Councillor Villeneuve's comments. I think that the real reality is that the property is currently zoned residential acreage, and currently in the OCP it is designated as mixed employment. What we are attempting to do today is move it into multi-residential. So I just want to provide that context. You know, unfortunately, it wasn't identified as a forested area in the past. And certainly we've had those plans that have been ongoing for many years. So I really do think that given the amenities that we have in that Pacific area, particularly as it relates to the Jim Pattison facility, I think that there's some complementary opportunities there that we should be using. So I just want to make those comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other comments, I'll call the question on the zoning. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried with the mayor in favor. Number 4.
Move third on number 4 on the zoning.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
Move third on the second zoning on number 4.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And also on number 4, move that council support the issuance of a DVP 7915034700 upon final adoption of the related bylaw.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Move third reading on number 5 on the land use contract.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Also on number 5, move third on the zoning.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Madam Mayor, on number 6, move third on the zoning on number 6.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's okay. And that is carried. Number 7.
Move third on the OCP on number 7.
Second.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, on this one here, I'm concerned with regards to the loss of the tree canopy on this proposal here. And I would like to make a motion to refer this matter back to staff, see if they can work with the developer, and see if we can get some more tree canopy retained in this project. From my perspective, I think that the only way that I can see that's possible is to reduce some of the numbers of lots there, maybe 4 or 5 of the lots. So I want to make that motion and see if I can get any support.
For a referral or for before it comes back to final?
For referral back to staff.
Referral back?
Yeah.
Is there a seconder
I'll
for referral?
second that for discussion.
Okay. It's on the floor for discussion. Councillor Gill.
Madam Mayor, I will not be supporting the referral. I think that, just reflecting on the public hearing, it was quite a unique night. I think that we had petitions that were supporting the application. In fact, I know that I had saw 2 petitions that clearly supported the application. There's 1 petition that was against. Off the top of my head, I believe there was probably 40 people on the petition that were supporting it, and I believe there was about half of that did not agree with the particular application. I believe that this proposal is very thoughtful in terms of what was presented. I think in terms of density, the proposed RF zoning is consistent to the RF lots to the immediate west, so I think the developer has done a good job of interfacing this particular development. Number 2, I think this project provides a good transition to the east, and I know that the developer had also provided an additional 3-meter interface as it pertains to those properties to the east. When I looked at the Semi-Amu Peninsula plan, I think the project does reflect the principles that are in that particular plan. And as you are aware, that the Semi-Amu plan also included completing the Larone Drive, which is probably the most difficult part about this particular application. I would further suggest that the proposed road alignment is consistent with the 40-lot subdivision that happened in 1987. That was to the north of the subject site, and there was a 21-lot subdivision that was to the south of the site, and that was completed in 1989. And I understand that both of these projects envisioned the completing of the future roadworks, which is exactly the Larone Drive that we speak of. I believe the applicant has demonstrated significant tree retention, particularly on the side of the project, and I believe that the applicant has provided the community benefit of $70,000, and that goes straight to our parks amenities. I further understand that the applicant is proposing to construct the southern portion of both on and off-site sidewalks, and I know that those costs are well in excess of $100,000. And I also understand that the applicant would be providing $150,000 for traffic improvements used at the discretion of the school. So that being said, Madam Mayor, really the real issue that I had before me on last Monday was really the Larone Drive. And when I put that in perspective, I understand that Larone Drive would improve local access to all area residents, and it would distribute traffic volumes equitably amongst the neighborhood. So based upon those 2 principles, and also given that Larone Drive would also improve traffic flow to the school, which eliminates the U-turns that people are doing now. So I do think that there is value in this particular project in the way that the developer had brought forward this project. I'd also wanted to compliment that the developers also indicated that they're prepared to put a restrictive covenant ensuring that no secondary suites are at this site. So that's something that I really want to have a discussion with Council on in terms of how we can bring that forward as well.
Okay, Councillor Martin.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Gill has covered everything that I wanted to say and echo. I think this is a well-planned-out development, and I'm certainly prepared to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Villeneuve.
Well, I seconded the motion for discussion because I know Councillor Woods was interested in it, and I think the development is well thought out. I think it could be better with a reduction of two lots, because there's 2 houses that are fit in there that I think really shouldn't be there to really enhance the RF quality of the development. I am interested in the restrictive covenant because in this area there really aren't suites, and I think that with the retention that parking issue will be there with the suites, and I appreciate the fact that the developer has put that acknowledgement forward that he would be willing to do that. I know there's a challenge in enforcing that, but I think that's a nod to the neighborhood that he respects the character. And there was a large discussion on the LaRonde Drive going through, but certainly with the information that we have from engineering, it's been on the planning concepts for a long period of time since these subdivisions were put in place, and I will say well thought out subdivisions, that I will support that extension, but I want to ensure that we have traffic calming on these streets so that they don't become thoroughfares, cutaways from 20th Avenue to 16th, and I think that's the concern of people that live in this area. So I acknowledge that there were a couple before the elementary school, but I think we should really look at the calming in those 2 or 3 streets as it opens up the traffic in this area, because it's going to be a change for sure.
Thank you, Councillor. I support this application for many of the reasons that have been defined. This is the school my son attended, and I know from the late 80s that always was the intention, that LaRonde Drive would go through, but I do support looking at traffic calming. It has a very the utilization, since it is no longer a community school, it is now a destination school. I think it does warrant consideration of other avenues of traffic slowdown. And while we're discussing the fact that it's now a destination school, I think when we move into that meeting that's coming up with the Board of Education, it will be nice to know when they determine whether or not there's a destination school, what are the parameters around those decision-making, and how does that happen in community, neighborhood communities, and what is our place in terms of those determinants, and how it may affect the other plans in the area. So, but I will be supporting this application. I'll call the question.
So, Madam Mayor, the question is on the referral, correct?
Right. Question is on referral, and yes, referral is on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? And that fails.
So the main
So then
question, I've already moved third on the OCP, Madam Mayor.
Yes, and it's already on the, it was already on the table as well. All those in favor? Opposed?
What's this again, dear?
Opposed?
Third reading on zoning.
And that's carried.
Move third on the zoning, Madam Mayor.
Second. All those,
Just on the rezoning, as Councillor Gill brought up, do we need a motion for the restrictive covenants?
I was going to do it last, Madam.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
it's coming up
Just
after
didn't
you're
want to
finished.
lose. All right.
It's next.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor on zoning? Opposed? And that's carried.
And also on number
Bang.
7, move that council support the issuance of DVP 7915022900 upon final adoption of the related bylaw.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
And finally, Madam Mayor, ad lib, just looking at having staff replace a restricted covenant limiting or
Secondary.
limiting no secondary suites on the particular project.
I'll second that.
Second.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you for that. Number 8.
Move third on number 8, Madam Mayor.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
On number 9, Madam Mayor, move DVP 7916003800 be approved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
On number 10, move that DVP 7916006400 be approved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
On number 11, move that DVP 7915042900 be approved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
On number 12, move the council support the issuance of DVP 7915013300.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Temporary use?
Move the issuance of TUP 7910030600.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move into finals?
Move final on 14.
Madam
Call for any persons wishing to make representation on this bylaw, which is a bylaw to close and remove the dedication of highway of a portion of road adjacent to 14433 and 14455 70A Avenue and 7053 144A Street. Any persons wishing to make representation? First call, second call, third and final call.
Move final
final.
adoption on 14.
Second. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move final adoption number 15.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move final adoption number 16.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move final adoption number 17.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move final adoption number 18.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
On number 19, move introduction.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move first.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move second.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed,
Move
carried.
public hearing be set for May 16th.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed,
On
carried.
number 20, move first.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move second.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move third.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed,
On
carried.
number 21, move first.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed,
Move
carried.
second.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move third.
Second.
And all those in favor, opposed, and that
On
one's
number
carried.
22, move first.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Move second.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
And move third.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. And clerk's report.
I'll move the council meeting schedule 2017.
Second.
All those in favor, opposed, and that's carried. Are there any notices of motion? Any other business before council?
Madam Mayor,
Second.
I was just wondering, continually at public hearing, it comes up the question, and I know we've had discussion on the tree bylaw and the replacement determination. But Ms. Jack comes to the table at each application and talks about the fact of the financial determination on how much money is going into the Green Fund for replacement of trees. And as a city councillor, I'd just like to have an opportunity to review that bylaw with staff to see, I'm sure we'll have to go through some processes, but to see, if we can make some adjustments so that we're actually having a more equitable payback on the trees that are coming down so that we can use them for other purposes, such as purchasing land in bioconservative areas. And I'd like to have an update and a discussion on that so that we can get some suggestions from people on both sides. I know there will be a different opinion by the development industry, but also the environmental groups on really whether we could make some adjustments in the future. So I just would like to request that we have a meeting through a short-sleeve session at some point with staff to discuss that bylaw.
I think that's a really good barometer of where we all are on that, and the city manager is in fact looking at our current limit and how we might adjust that upwards, and is intending on bringing that back to short sleeve.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.